Alrighty, welcome back to another Wisco Fanatics Tuesday evening. You might notice in one of our squares we don't have Simon. We have Mike Spofford with us. We told Simon he wasn't allowed to come in because Mike was going to be here. Simon's busy. He does military stuff, so we appreciate him for that, and we appreciate Mike hopping on with us. So we're going to discuss. Obviously, there's a little bit of a piece of news that we want to get Mike's thoughts on. We were actually talking about before the show, but we're also going to go through the Packers schedule, the NFC North outlook, and give our record predictions. And then we're going to preview the Packers versus Lions because we have a Packer game on Sunday. So we're going to hit the intro and we're going to get going.
Welcome to another episode of the Wisco Fanatics Show, where we cover the Packers, Bucks, Brewers, and Badgers basketball and football teams from an optimistic and realistic perspective.
Wisco Fanatics is brought to you by Cardboard Legacy, Wisconsin's most complete sports card shop. Buy, sell, grade, and consign all at their location in Oshkosh.
Alrighty, so Mike, we're super excited to have you back. Always excited to have you on. We always get some great insight from you. So we were talking before the show. There's a small bit of news that came out between last Tuesday and today. Just a small piece. So obviously you work for the team. So give us kind of your thoughts and your rundown on the Packers pulling off a monumental trade.
Yeah, I mean, I just did not think that the Dallas Cowboys would move on from Micah Parsons at the age of 26 with 4 Pro Bowls and 3 All-Pro selections in his first 4 seasons in the league. I mean, this is the kind of thing that just doesn't happen. I mean, there are plenty of, Hall of Fame caliber players, guys whose careers are headed to Canton, who get traded in this league, but they don't get traded when they're 26 years old. They get traded when they're 30 or 32 or something like that. This is unprecedented. And when you hear Brian Gutekunst and Matt LaFleur talk about this, they talked about it at length, obviously, on Friday. The 2 words they kept using over and over again were rare and unique, and both in terms of the opportunity, because these opportunities just don't come along, and those words were also in reference to the player himself in Parsons and what he's accomplished just in his first 4 seasons in the league, and what he can mean to any defense that he joins. So there's no comparison. I can't even think of anything in NFL history, certainly not in the salary cap era by any stretch, that resembles this in terms of this type of a player going from one team to another, and for a price tag that seemed more than reasonable. I actually think a bargain price, because I would have thought any team, the Packers or anybody else, would have had to give up a lot more than what they did to get Parsons. And I say that knowing that first-round picks are good commodities, and Kenny Clark is a whale of a football player and a locker room leader. So it's not that the Packers didn't give up anything, but I still think they got a bargain in what they gave up for Parsons.
I mean, there was rumors that they were dangling that there was a framework of like Rashawn Gary, 2 first-round picks, a second-round pick, and a 5th-round pick, and people were still kind of on the fence. Like, I might do that, and then we find out that it's 2 firsts and almost 30-year-old Kenny Clark.
Yeah, I would have thought for sure that that any player included in the deal would have been a younger player, and that there would have been at least one other top 100 draft pick included, whether that be a 2nd rounder or a 3rd rounder, whatever year it would be, but another top 100 draft pick to go with the 2 first rounders in order to get this deal done. So yeah, I'm stunned by all of it from all angles.
Yeah, I can't believe they didn't get what the Bears had given up for Khalil Mack a few years back. I do want to say for Kenny, that leaves, like, as you touched on, Mike, is his leadership and what he means to the team. Yeah, he's almost 30, but which is, in football terms, it's business, right? He is getting older. He's had a few injuries and stuff, but that dude is such a great leader and just professional for the Green Bay Packers. So that one, when I seen the name come across, it stung a little bit. But for me, the whole time I was like, I don't want to give up Gary and I don't want to give up LVN, because I want them to be with Parsons, because now Gary is going to finally be like, you cannot double team him. Or if you double team him, you're probably not doubling Parsons and you're in big trouble. So to keep both of them was huge. And I think, I think there was a lot of growth, and it makes sense why they kept 6 defensive tackles now. I think obviously, as Goody kind of touched on, they were in conversations a little bit about this already. So I think that was a possible influence on them keeping 6, but I think they like the younger guys. So I'm excited to see Wooden step up and see if Wyatt can stay healthy and stuff there too.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, I mean, we heard from Goody, and there have been reports out of Dallas that in terms of the player to be included, Kenny Clark was the must from Dallas's standpoint. That was the guy that they wanted along with the draft picks. I think I mean, who knows really what was going through Goody's mind? I don't think he didn't want to trade Kenny Clark. I think he might have been willing to part with somebody else, but when that's the guy being insisted on by the other team, and this is an opportunity you don't want to let pass you by, then you've got to make that tough decision. And I think it's still as much as I hate to see Kenny go, not only as a player, but as a guy that I've gotten to know in the locker room over the last 9 years. And he's a super good guy in so many ways. And I hate to see him go, but from a football standpoint, there's no question that Goody had to say yes to it.
I think you're in a situation there that obviously trading Kenny Clark isn't what you want to do, but I feel that this is almost pretty self-explanatory that the backlash would have been bigger if Goody said no because the Cowboys wanted Kenny Clark versus losing.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I think 2 first-round picks and any player other than Jordan Love or maybe Xavier McKinney or Josh Jacobs, any player other than those 3, I with 2 first-round picks for Micah Parsons, I don't know how you say no to that. I honestly don't. Yeah. And because Packers have a lot of good players. They don't have a player who's been an All-Pro 3 times in his first 4 seasons in the league. I mean, this is a player on a completely different level, and it's difference makers who win games, they're called difference makers because they make a difference. And so that's why this was an unprecedented opportunity that I just don't. I mean, there's no way Goody could have passed it up the way it came together.
Yeah, my initial thoughts when I seen it was going to be a player, my initial brain went to offensive line and started thinking Sheed Walker or something like that because Dallas needs help there. But Kenny Clark, like I said, like you touched on, I'm not trying to, poo-poo on Kenny Clark. He's a great player, but for them to take a 30-year-old, it really surprised me. And I was like, okay, well,
I agree.
Thank you. So.
Yeah, no, I agree entirely. And I read another in-depth piece today that dug into some things a little bit more from Dallas's standpoint. And I wasn't totally familiar with Clark's contract, but they're obviously getting a very, very good player. But from what I understand, Dallas only has to pay Kenny Clark about $2 million this year. And then his salary for next year is $20 million. So they can essentially have Kenny Clark for 2 years and $22 million, which is a bargain for a player of that caliber. And if things don't work out with Clark this year, they could actually release him after just paying him $2 million for this year and not owe him anything else. So, because there aren't any more, the only guarantees in Clark's contract were all paid by the Packers. So, so from that standpoint, from a financial standpoint, I get it a little bit more from Dallas's perspective in that regard. They just have so much more financial flexibility while also getting a player that they think can really help them in the middle of their defensive line. So it starts to make more sense in that regard.
I mean, and you look at the flip side for the Packers. I mean, we spent the last 2 off seasons talking about now that the Packers have gotten away from Aaron Rodgers' contract and now the things they can do with that financial flexibility. They obviously signed Jordan Love early, front-loaded his deal, gave him a big signing bonus to keep a lot of that flexibility. They've been the youngest and second youngest teams in the league the last 2 years. They were already the youngest team in the league this year, then made a trade of sending out a 29-year-old for a 26-year-old, got even younger, and they have so many guys that are just on either good contracts, front-loaded contracts, or rookie contracts. So they're tapping into that flexibility that we've been talking about for the last 2 years. And if you're going to tap into that flexibility for somebody, why not Micah Parsons?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, based on the numbers that I've seen, I mean the cap charges for Parsons the first 3 years here, 25, 26, and 27 are minimal for a player of his caliber. Now then, don't look at the 28 and 29 cap numbers because they'll make you close your eyes, but how this goes. I mean, if things go well with Parsons and heading into 2028, they'll revisit the contract and figure something out. And
Yep.
I mean, the way things are going in the NFL, I mean, 3 years down the road, the cap is going to be another $45 million higher for every team. So,
Yeah.
that's why contracts get structured the way they're getting structured these days. Those last couple years as they're currently written are not real. They're going to change in one form or fashion or another. The way it's structured with the very friendly, like super friendly cap numbers from now through 2027, the Packers will be able to do what they want to in terms of re-signing guys and still perhaps pursuing other guys, whatever the case might be. And we all know the list of guys who are going to be coming off those rookie contracts over the next 2 years. They're going to be able to do what they want to do. Micah Parsons is not going to prevent that. You're pushing some decisions further down the road, and you revisit those when those happen. But right now the window is multiple years, and they're gonna build a team that they hope and plan on being a legitimate contender for multiple seasons here. This isn't just a push your chips in the middle of the table for one flip of the card. That's not what this is. This is for multiple years, and with a young quarterback, with a young core of players around him, and Micah Parsons is now a huge part of that core.
Yeah, and I actually
think about that.
Go ahead.
Real quick. I'm so glad that you worded that the way that you did, because I've been having discussions with other Packers fans over the last week, and they're talking about, oh my God, the cap number in 2028 is insane. The cap number in 2029, we're not going to have any money. I'm like,
it is insane.
Why are you worried about 2028? We haven't started 2025 season. Let's live in the now, people. Let's enjoy Micah Parsons as a 26-year-old in his prime, one of the best pass rushers in the league right now, before we worry about 2028. Why are we all just jumping to 2028 right now? I'm not trying to go there right now. That means that I'm older. Yeah. I got to get older tomorrow. I don't want to get older tomorrow, but that's just the way it is. Let's just live in 2025.
Yeah, you can't go into it worrying about the cap numbers of every single year of a contract all the way out. I mean, look at Jordan Love's. It's the same thing. I mean, it's how business is done these days. And because all these, I mean, the only thing that disrupted the massive annual increases in the salary cap was COVID. So barring another pandemic and, 2 COVID related football seasons again, like the cap is going to keep going up, and it's going to keep going up fast. So, that's just, it's the way things are done these days. And you can't look at every single cap number of a contract all the way down the road. You make decisions when you need to make them.
Yeah. And I've seen a tweet. I can't remember who tweeted it out, but we've heard a lot about other NFC North teams laughing. Oh, how are they going to pay anyone? How are they going to pay anyone? Looking at next year, the Packers are actually in better shape than the 3 other teams in the NFC North, if I'm not mistaken. It was like we're at like -1 point something. I want to say one of them was up to the negative like 30s or 40s or something crazy like that. And I think that was the Lions, and they still have to pay Hutchinson. So everyone roasting us about like salary cap. Salary cap is, in my opinion, is kind of made up. They flex numbers. We have Russ Ball. We'll take care of it. But people freaking out about that, they just need to worry about the fact that we just opened up our Super Bowl window hugely because he might be the best. He's the best player on our team. We just traded for the best player on our team.
Yep.
So, in my opinion, now granted, yes, Jordan Love's going to have ultimately the biggest impact. Also a great player, and I think his trajectory is very sky high if he stays healthy and everything. But adding Micah Parsons to the team is like you just added the best player that you have on your team to your team, assuming he stays healthy.
Yeah, and I tried to point this out in my Insider Inbox column too. I mean, not that you don't want to have first-round draft picks the next 2 years, right? But Matthew Golden Matthew Golden's cap number for this year as a rookie is $3.2 million. And then that goes up steadily every year, the 4 years of his rookie contract, where his fourth year, it's $5.6 million. So the next 2 years, essentially, those cap charges are also part of the equation that won't be there because of what you spent to get Micah Parsons. So, you're not going to be investing as much money in your draft class because you won't have 2 first-round picks, the next 2 years. So that's all part of the bigger picture and the cap equation here that people need to understand.
Another thing I want to throw out there is that too many people are getting caught up in what the average annual value of a contract is and not what the actual cap number is. Yeah. So that's part of like the signing bonus stuff. Like that doesn't count towards the cap. So the average annual value isn't actually what their cap hit is going to be.
Right. Right. And that's the thing. And the average annual value is what is always used to compare to different players and stuff, right? Because the way contracts are structured, everybody's cap hits are different, at different times throughout the course of that contract. So the only way to compare to other players is to look at the average annual value, but the way the charges come on the cap and when they come on the cap is different for every deal.
Yeah, like Jordan Love's average annual value is like 55 million, but his cap hits are only like 40, 42.
Yeah. I mean,
sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say one other thing. I think that Goody's always thinking in advance too. I think he knows that we're probably not going to be signing Rasheed Walker unless he just has a stellar season. If he plays at left tackle, I'm glad he's starting at left tackle, because even if he's the same as Jordan Morgan, I think Rasheed should start. And the reason I think that is because if he gets a big contract, we're likely picking up a 3rd round compensatory pick. If we don't pay Romeo Dobbs, you might see a 5th or 6th for him. And then you have a player like Kingsley Angbare, who had a really good preseason, but with Baron Terrell and Colin Oliver coming back, you might have another player you're going to pick up another pick with. So I think he knows that he can go get some draft capital if he feels like he needs it. And they're going to get some from comp picks and stuff as well. Because Micah Parsons, he's not going to cost us any comp picks now because we traded for him. So that's not in the calculation. So I do think we're not going to see anything really for 2026 because we signed some guys and whatnot, and we didn't really lose any high paid players last year. But when we do it this next offseason in 2027, I think we're going to be picking up some picks.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely part of the thought process moving forward as far as projecting that kind of stuff, and whether whether they figured out specifically which players are going to be re-signed and which ones aren't. I still think they let things play out and because they they're still looking at development of young guys and seeing where they end up. But the reality is of all the guys that you have whose rookie contracts are expiring at the same time, you can't re-sign everybody. They know that some players are going to go, they're going to get, good money elsewhere. And that's just part of it. So yeah, those kind of thoughts get factored in as well.
I think you made a pretty good impression on us when we talked in early March before we were doing all of our draft stuff on specifically the wide receiver position. And I think that just goes to that exact same point, that if the Packers don't re-sign everybody, whether it's Christian Watson and Romeo Dobbs both walk, I think that not only plays into the Matthew Golden pick, but also the Savion Williams pick. The fact that they drafted not only 1, but 2 wide receivers in their top 3 rounds, I think that just kind of goes to show that they're playing more of the replenishment route and let's keep us good route than let's try to hold on to guys for as long as we can.
Yeah, I mean, and we just have to see what happens there. I mean, if Christian Watson comes back in the middle of November and catches 10 touchdown passes in the last 8 games of the season or something like that, you're going to think really hard about re-signing him and keeping him around and keeping him with Jordan Love. So that's where I say, like, I don't think decisions have necessarily been made yet, but at a position like that where the Packers have repeatedly now invested draft picks year after year, you I'll go back to the word you used before, Tyler. You create flexibility for yourself. You don't box yourself into a corner in terms of anything that you have to do at a very important position. It's interesting because while the Packers have all of these young receivers and none of them are making a whole lot of money, relatively speaking, to where the receiver market is right now, and they're not going to be able to keep everybody when they come up on their second contract. So it's a position that where the Packers are getting by kind of cheap right now for some really good talent. The flip side is the Cincinnati Bengals are paying 2 wide receivers like, a combined $70 million a year or whatever it is for Chase and Higgins, and they're trying to win a Super Bowl a different way with a franchise quarterback investing everything in the wide receivers. And then, they had this whole contract dispute with their best pass rusher, which they eventually worked out. So not everybody goes about it the same way, and we'll see what happens with the Packers in the NFC. We'll see what happens with the Bengals in the AFC.
And that's the other part of it. We have to think about this differently. That's why I hammer on the youth aspect of it so much, is that we are not in Aaron Rodgers is 39 years old this year. We need to try to put all of our eggs in this season's basket to win it all this year right now. The Micah Parsons trade, that's a 3 to 5 to potentially 8-year move. That's something that you're looking to keep your window open for that so much longer stretch. That's why I keep bringing up the age thing, because it's not Super Bowl or bust in 2025. We're trying to win one more before Aaron Rodgers retires. That's not where the Packers are. I mean, Josh Jacobs is young. Jordan Love is young. Obviously, Parsons is young. I mean, the oldest guy on the team is
McManus.
Is it Isaiah McDuffie?
Jenkins, maybe.
Jenkins, maybe.
Yeah, Jenkins being drafted in 2019. I mean, you look at where things are right now. You've got your franchise quarterback signed long term. You just signed your right tackle long term. You have your number one running back and your number one safety are both under contract for the next 3 years. And you've got a second year guy at linebacker who might be the next, the next great defensive player in the mix here in Edgerrin Cooper. You're going to either re-sign Rasheed Walker and still have a young proven left tackle, or you're going to turn that over to a first round pick down the road here, at that cornerstone position. I mean, the Packers have set themselves up here it's why you have to look at it as, this isn't just some all-in move, for 1 year. This is something that is part of a larger picture, and with a lot of young players who are in the prime of their careers, and so this is the opportunity to go for it, not only in 2025 but in the years ahead.
Jake's dad said the youth is good, but you do need some veterans. Winning with experience also. He just talked about you can't sign all these young guys to second contracts. I mean, some of these guys, obviously, not all of them have Super Bowl experience, but I mean, a lot of these guys have been in the league for a good while. I mean, McKinney and Jacobs just being the two free agents that they brought in. I mean, those guys have been in the league for a while. Obviously, guys like Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs played with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, there's guys on here. They're not all rookies, but they are. I mean, again, too, the youth is good, but I mean, some veterans and stuff like that is fair.
Yeah, and I'd love to keep Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson. I just don't think we'll be able to keep them both because look at what Khalil Shakir got. I mean, I would expect Doubs to get something similar to that. So that was like 3 years, $36 million or something crazy. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was a pretty big contract for him. So I love them as players, but I think we will lose them this year. But I think they've done a very good job of setting us up for replenishment with our draft. So.
Alrighty. Well, with all that said, now that we've discussed Micah Parsons for 25 minutes, just like we all had planned, I don't think there's enough time that we could spend on it and be like, yep, we didn't think of everything to say. But we're going to move into specifically 2025, and we're going to start with the Packers' schedule. So the Packers have a Week 5 bye, but starting this Sunday, they play the Lions. The following Thursday, they play the Commanders. Both of those are home games. Then they play at Cleveland, at Dallas. After the bye, they play the Bengals. Then they play at the Cardinals, at the Steelers, home against the Panthers and Eagles. Then they play at the Giants, home against the Vikings, at the Lions, home against the Bears, at the Broncos, at the Bears, home against the Ravens, and then at the Vikings in Week 18. So, Jake, I'll give you first dibs. What stands out to you on the schedule? What games are you looking forward to? What things do you have highlighted for the Packers schedule in 2025?
Well, you start out the first 2 weeks, and obviously the first week is a division game and a conference game, so that's a big-time game. The Lions have kind of owned us in Lambeau. I'm going to call a spade, right? They've owned us in Lambeau the last couple of years. So that's a big-time matchup. And now with the Micah Parsons trade, you got Aiden Hutchinson coming back. The thing that you could definitely tell before the Micah Parsons trade is the Lions definitely have a better pass rush. And that part of the Packers defense, it didn't have as much bite as the Lions did, right? With obviously Hutchinson being as good as he is. And, they traded for Marcus Davenport, who's going to, actually benefit from Hutchinson being on the field. He's going to do pretty good with his one-on-ones. You have DJ Reader in the middle over there for Detroit. So that's going to be a big-time game. Then you flip it over. Now you got a superstar quarterback coming into Lambeau for his first ever game at Lambeau Field on Thursday night. That is going to be a huge game that determines the season, I think. Early in the season, not a lot of rest. You're gonna feel all the bumps and bruises from week 1 because that's gonna be a physical game. Then you go at the Browns. Okay, that's probably a win. We could probably pencil that one as a win. I feel like Joe Flacco's not going to be walking very good after that game, I feel like. And then you go to Dallas, which all Packers fans are just like, wow. We get to go to our second home game. The Packers get 9 home games 3 years in a row now because we get to go to our second home down there in Dallas. And now this game is way more interesting now, right?
Yeah.
You get a bye week. I feel like 3-1 by the bye week is really good. Like, I'd be okay with that. 4-0 is obviously the goal, but I feel like 3-1 is good. Bengals at home, that's going to be an interesting one. Joe Burrow at Lambeau for the first time is going to be really, really fun. Then you have back-to-back road games. Obviously, the big one in Week 8 is Packers versus Aaron Rodgers, right? That's the first one that I really marked down. I was like, oof. That's gonna be emotional for me because I love me some Aaron Rodgers, man. So seeing him against the Packers, it's gonna be different than Favre for me. Like, I didn't love Favre as much as I loved Aaron Rodgers because I feel like I'm more Aaron Rodgers era. So it's gonna be pretty emotional for me. I'm gonna hear the green 19 from Aaron Rodgers. And he's gonna get us go off sides like once, and I'm gonna be like, damn, that used to be our thing, man. Damn it. And then we play the Panthers. Panthers are kind of up and coming, and at that time, Tet might be back. So that one is a little bit of a trap game for me because you have the Aaron Rodgers reunion, you have the Panthers, and then you have the team that knocked you out of the playoffs. The defending Super Bowl champions coming in on a Monday Night Football. That's the second game where I'm like, it's not just a measuring stick game. That's a respect game. That's where you take respect around the league, in the conference, let everybody know where you stand, right? At the Giants, that's another W, okay? The Giants are terrible. They don't know what they're doing over there. They're a freaking mess. Vikings at home.
Jackson Darts looked okay.
But he's not starting, so.
By that time, I think he might be.
Maybe.
That's a good point.
Vikings at home becomes really, really important for the reason that they have to go to Detroit on a short week on Thanksgiving. The back-to-back conference games and that short period of time is massive, especially towards the end of the season.
3 straight division games, too.
Yeah. Because then you go to the Bears, which that one, the first meeting with Ben Johnson, blah, blah, blah. He said all this BS. He doesn't know what he's saying anymore. I don't understand why every Bears head coach, every time that they become the head coach of the Bears, has to mention the Packers. Talk about it. I'm not going to say what I want to say, but I have some words.
It's pandering to the fans.
At Denver, the Packers are terrible in Denver. They are horrible. They're almost as bad in Pittsburgh as they are in Denver, but they're way worse in Denver. At Chicago, near Christmas, that's my favorite game of the year. We get to ruin the entire city of Chicago's Christmas. Do you understand how happy I was when I saw the date for that game? I was like, oh my God, we get to ruin all their Christmases. They're going to spend thousands of dollars on their kids, and then we get to ruin their Christmas. They're going to have to buy a new TV by the 26th. It's going to be awesome. I'm going to love it. The Ravens coming in. I believe that's a Monday Night Football game. Am I wrong on that? I'm not sure. But that's a Week 17 game at Minnesota. That'll be interesting. I think the Packers will have things wrapped up by Week 17. But really the big games are Steelers, Eagles, and I have I have Vikings and at Detroit, 12-13. Those are the biggest matchups for me that I'm looking at. It's going to shape the season up.
Brian, what are you thinking about the schedule? What stands out to you, and what are you looking forward to?
Yeah, I think Jake did a great breakdown, so I'm not going to try to top that or anything. I just think no, it was great. It made a lot of great points. I don't think the schedule makers did the Packers any favors. It's a lot of times you're like, well, I want my big games at the beginning of the year. Well, for me, like, man, the Detroit game at the beginning of the year and the Washington game at the beginning of the year. Granted, they're home teams. Our games. We need to win our home games. This will literally have lasting ramifications for seeding come December and January. Like, these are huge games. So we got to be ready to start fast. It's unfortunate. Hopefully I know Micah won't be fully ingrained in, but it'd be great if this was week 4, week 5. I've always said I'm kind of a strong believer that I think it should be NFC versus AFC the first week of the season, like almost like an intramural game, or in MLB. Just so, because you could still, don't get me wrong, you could still schedule amazing matchups. You could have the Packers and Bills, or you could have the Eagles.
We thought Packers Ravens was going to be the Monday Night Football opener for a while.
Packers Ravens, exactly. Like, you still have amazing games you can schedule, but they have less impact on the overall season. Because you can say, well, they had preseason to get ready. No one's putting all their players in preseason, and the NFL as a business and an organization doesn't want all your players to get hurt in preseason because you have such huge games to start the season. There are some trap games in there for sure. We need to do better than 1-5 in our division. That's the only thing I'll say is we need to be at the worst. I think to compete for this division and actually take the division crown, they need to finish at worst 3-3 in their division.
Yeah. I think 4-2 is reasonable. Mike, what are you thinking at? Looking at the schedule, what stands out to you? What are you looking forward to?
Well, I'll comment on a couple of things I heard. One, I see one of your viewers mentions Favre in Denver, first play of overtime touchdown. Yeah, 2007. I was at that game. Of course, that was my second season with Packers.com, so I was there for that. The Favre to Jennings on the first play of overtime. And I think to Jake's point about how horribly the Packers have played in Denver, that overtime win in 2007, the Packers have been paying for that since – in the return trips to Denver since, because the one in 2015, Aaron Rodgers threw for like 77 yards or something. I mean, the Packers, I think, were undefeated going into that Sunday night game, and Aaron Rodgers threw for 77 yards. And of course, that Broncos team ended up winning the Super Bowl with Peyton Manning and that incredible defense. We didn't know at that time that they were that good, but yeah, that 2015 game was absolutely one of the most forgettable ones I've ever watched. And then the game in 2023 with, there was I want to say Anders Carlson missed a field goal in there, and there were just some really poor execution things. The Packers, even as poorly as they played, still had a chance to win that game, like right at the end. And then there was a holding call that seemed kind of a phantom call that took away an opportunity on the final drive. So anyway, those last two visits to Denver since the 07 overtime thriller, definitely games to forget. To answer your question, Jake, about the Ravens game toward the end of the season, that is an undetermined, could be a Saturday or a Sunday game at this point. They haven't decided. Haven't officially scheduled that. It'll either be a Saturday or Sunday. To the larger question of the schedule in general, I mean, to play these two teams, Detroit and Washington, right out of the gate, 2 games within 5 days like this, you're talking about, the team that's obviously won your division the last couple years, and then the real upstart team from 2024 that got all the way to the NFC Championship game before getting beaten by Philadelphia. So, you almost can't pick 2 bigger games to start the year and then to have them condensed within 5 days like that. The positive in that regard is that they are both at home. And when I look at the Packers schedule, as tough as this schedule is, when you look at the playoff teams from a year ago, not the ones in the division that you're going to play every year, but your non-division playoff opponents, the Packers get most of them at home this year. You have Washington at home, you have Philadelphia at home, you have Baltimore at home, and I sort of consider Cincinnati, even though they didn't officially make the playoffs last year, but they were the team nobody would have wanted to play if they had gotten into the playoffs at the end of last season. You get the Bengals at home as well. And as far as playoff teams from last year on the road, it's just Pittsburgh and Denver. And that's it when you're looking at outside the division. So in that sense, as tough as the schedule is, the home and away thing, I think, fell at least in Green Bay's favor to an extent there. And if I were to pick probably the one game I'm looking forward to more than any other, I'd probably say the visit from the Bengals, just because I have not seen Joe Burrow play in person, because in his career, the only time the Packers have played the Bengals with Joe Burrow was in Cincinnati, and it was during that second COVID season when, the travel parties were shrunk, and I was not traveling with the team that year, so I was covering that game off of television. I wasn't actually there to see Joe Burrow play live. So this will be my first chance to see Joe Burrow live, and I'm really looking forward to that.
That's the game that
ended up with like
kicker
7 missed field goals at the end of that game.
Yeah, the kicker celebrated when he missed the field goal.
Yeah, it was Crosby and McPherson from
that was wild.
From Cincinnati, with all the missed field goals back and forth and the overtime and everything else.
Ended up going until 4 o'clock.
I was covering that one off TV. I wasn't in Cincinnati for that one. So
do you remember the last time the Packers came to Lambeau?
What's that?
Do you remember the last time the Packers came to Lambeau? Do you remember that?
You mean
game?
the Bengals?
You mean the Bengals?
Oh, the Bengals. Sorry.
Yeah, that was that was also an overtime game, if I remember right, and it was the Geronimo Allison. The Geronimo Allison big play that set up Crosby for the winning field goal.
But the throw that got it tied from Rodgers to Nelson, I'll never forget that throw.
Oh, yeah.
It was such good coverage in the corner, and I was like, oh man, nobody else is making that throw, dude.
Yeah,
nobody in the history.
Yeah, the Packers and Bengals don't play each other very often, of course, as AFC versus NFC. But when they have played, the games have been pretty darn entertaining for sure.
Yeah. Not a lot of love for the Thursday night games, especially from Pat and Steve. Pat said, I hate the Thursday night games when they talk safety. That's crap. Steve said the Thursday night football games are often trash. The teams aren't ready. I mean, we know why they're doing it. It's for money. That's obviously why they're doing it. And obviously they can't do games on Friday nights because that's high school. They can't do games on Saturdays. That's college. And then when the college season ends, then they start playing games on Saturdays too. But I mean, it's the most exposure also. I mean, you get more teams on TV at times when the other teams aren't playing.
This is why we were able to pay Micah Parsons $45 million a year.
Right. Yeah. Amazon has put a bunch of money into the NFL that's going to help increase the salary cap for the future.
Yeah, I think Amazon spent somewhere in the neighborhood of $1 billion for a 10-year contract for Thursday Night Football. I mean, literally, they're spending $100 million a year for one game a week. So
that isn't the biggest draw.
And they even get? I don't even think they get this Thursday night's game, right? It starts week 2.
Right. Yeah, because the kickoff opener on for the first game of the year is on NBC, not on.
So they get like 15 games a year if you actually think about it, because they don't get that one, and then they stop at a week prior at the end of
Thanksgiving either.
Yeah, they don't get Thanksgiving either, because Thanksgiving is on. NBC.
They got a Black Friday game though, I think, and I think
right. Yes, they're getting. Yeah, they get the Black Friday one now. Yeah, that's.
But hey, I mean, Bezos has the money, so
yeah.
And the NFL is not going anywhere.
Yeah, no, I mean the amount of money that Amazon forked out for that Thursday Night Football contract is it's crazy money. So I mean, yeah, it's at the expense of player safety and player health to a certain extent, but the players are also getting paid a lot of money because of deals like that. So I mean,
Bezos had to buy one less yacht.
Yeah. All right, so as we've gone through the schedule, Jake, you can give me yours first. Give me your record prediction from the head.
For the Packers?
Yes.
12-5.
Okay, I also have 12-5. Brian, what do you have for the Packers record from the head?
I have it's the same as last year. I have 11-6. I think I I think we're still better than I think our schedule's harder this year, but I think finishing 11-6 because we're still a better team, but it is a rough schedule.
Simon had the Packers from the head at 10-7. So, Mike, you've been with us before. We do 2 predictions on a lot of things. Matthew jumped in, said 12-4. I'm going to assume he means 12-5. Mike, you've been with us before. We do 2 predictions always. We do head and heart. We do the more analytical one, and then we do the more optimistic. So, Mike, if you had to say from the head, what would you throw out for a Packers record prediction?
I am exactly on the same page as Bryant on this one. I say 11-6, same record as last year, but I think the Packers will be a better team than they were last year. But the schedule is awfully tough. They have a lot of, as I ran through them, a lot of non-division games against playoff teams from a year ago. That was not part of the schedule last year when they went 11-6. So that's I'm on exactly the same page there.
Yeah,
Matt, I'm going to hold your question for a second.
Their teeth will be cut way more this year and be ready for the playoffs. I think if they can get through this schedule and be 11-6, 12-5, I think we're gonna put up a better fight in the playoffs. Not that I think we kind of got to. Not to rehash the Eagles game. It was a bad start that I didn't think should have happened, and that hurt us. So, but I think we'll be more prepared this year.
It'll be interesting to see because we had basically the first Jordan Love season. We had the kind of up and downs. They lost some games they shouldn't. They won some games they maybe shouldn't. And then last year they basically won all the games you would expect them to win, and then just didn't really beat any of the really, really good teams. It was kind of just how last season went. So it'll be interesting to see where they come down in this season. Matt, you'll have to go back to the beginning. We spent about the first 25 minutes of the show talking about Micah Parsons. So let's flip it to the more optimistic, the heart prediction. Jake, what do you think for the Packers record from the heart?
I didn't get too crazy. The only game that I flipped in my heart was the Detroit game at Detroit. So I have 13-4.
All right. Bryant, what do you got from the heart?
Yeah, my heart is 13-4. I think if they go something like 5-1, 4-2 in the division, we could see a 13-4 record.
So I flipped 2 games myself, and I flipped the Bengals and the Eagles. Those are 2 games that I flipped. So I have 14-3 from the heart. So Mike, if you had to give a more optimistic outlook than the analytical, what would you say for a record prediction?
Yeah, I'd probably say 2 more wins. So 13-4. I'm not sure which those would be. I didn't literally in my mind go through every single game to in terms of making that prediction. But I think the Packers are capable of 13 wins, which would be a tremendous accomplishment. Given the schedule that they face this year, but we'll just have to see.
I kind of feel like we're at a point. Obviously, the youth is what it is, but if we're talking from the floor to ceiling, I feel that there's not anywhere between 9 and 15 wins that would really shock anybody. Not saying that 15 wins is totally reasonable and people should go bet $1,000 on the Packers to hit 15, but it also if we're talking about it today, the potential of the team, if everything goes perfectly to plan, that we're sitting here on September 2nd saying that we're shocked that they won that many games.
I mean, it's the kind of thing. I look at it as the beauty of the NFL, right? Because we're looking at these games, and I'm talking about the playoff teams from a year ago and how the schedule shapes up, but the game in early November against Carolina. I mean, if Bryce Young starts going off and the Panthers are getting it figured out, that game could end up being one of the biggest games on the schedule and have huge playoff implications in the NFC. And we're not talking about that as a big game right now, right? And
right.
And how this goes as well. I mean, with we saw Jordan Love miss a couple of games last year. I mean, what if Jared Goff or JJ McCarthy or Joe
Jalen
Burrow
Hurts.
or Jalen Hurts or whoever ends up, missing a game when they play the Packers. I mean, the Packers beat the Chiefs at Arrowhead when Patrick Mahomes missed the game, a handful of years ago, right? So those kinds of things happen in this league as well. They can happen to your team or they can happen to the other team. So that's that's kind of the beauty of the league is if we do an analysis of the schedule, like at the midway point of the season and how everybody looks at that point, we're having a whole different conversation than we're having right now, a handful of days before the first game.
Yeah, for sure. Pat said 11-6, be really happy with 12-5. Steve said with improvement on both lines, I think we're more bulletproof, protect Love, and get off the field on defense with a great pass rush. And that's one thing we didn't talk about when we talked about Micah Parsons at the top of the show is the question marks at cornerback. And now essentially your part of your plan is we have a guy that's going to make it so there's less time for those guys to be picked on.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
that's another impact of Parsons.
Yeah, I mean, I actually, when Wes and I were talking on Packers Unscripted today, I asked him the question, okay, who's the individual player on the Packers who benefits the most from the addition of Micah Parsons? And I actually said it might be Keyshawn Nixon, because not that the Packers play a ton of man coverage. Hafley likes to play zone to keep eyes on the quarterback and go for the turnovers, and we know all of that. But there are times you're going to play man. Certainly you're going to play man if you're dialing up a blitz. You almost always have to play man behind it. And if you're playing man, Keyshawn Nixon is the guy who's probably going to be matched up against the number one receiver for the other team in those situations. So if you've got a pass rush that is vastly improved with the addition of Micah Parsons, Keyshawn Nixon is definitely the type of guy that will benefit from something like that.
Yeah.
I would absolutely hate to be a center on 3rd and 8 and look up and see Edgerrin Cooper and Micah Parsons standing in the A gap.
Oh man, you got some decisions to make.
It has to be a quick throw. You're not blocking that. Like no. It's gonna be really fun.
Yeah, and your running backs have to be on their P's and Q's in pass protection because, as you say, if you go double A gap look, the center can only pick up one of those guys, and the other guy is most likely got to be picked up by the running back, and he's coming straight at him.
So we might learn some stuff about Jahmyr Gibbs this year.
We're gonna learn some things in a few days.
Matt, we appreciate it. So let's jump into the NFC North. Kind of, I mean, if we look at it, we can go through, kind of what we think the division is going to look like. Simon had from his head and heart record predictions that he sent me. He had the Lions finishing first, the Packers second, the Vikings third, and the Bears fourth, but all within 3 games of each other as far as wins are concerned, going from 11 to 10 to 9 to 8. And then from the heart, he just had the Packers and the Lions switched. If we're looking at the 12-5 record that I threw on the Packers, I had the Packers finishing first in the division, the Lions second at 11-6, the Vikings third at 9-8, and the Bears fourth at 7-10. Bryant, I'll go to you first this time. I mean, what are you looking at with the NFC North and where the Packers stand in it?
Yeah, I think there's pretty much questions, like a single question you can point to pretty much every team to see how they're going to do this year. Lions, how do they fare without both their coordinators? Do they take a step back or do they struggle there? Vikings, look, they have a super talented roster. Okay. But if JJ McCarthy doesn't step up at least to a certain degree and be able to be a strong game manager, they're not going to be as good as they were last year. The Bears will go as far as Caleb Williams can take him. He's looked good in preseason. That's against a lot of vanilla defenses. Let's see what actually happens when the season kicks off. And for me, out of the Packers, now that you trade for Micah, are they ready to take that step? Have these young players take the step and be true contenders in the North End in the in the conference. So for me, I would think I pretty much have the Lions and Packers right there at the same record. It'll all really come down to a division record. We need to at minimum split with them. Hopefully we can go and take another one from them in Detroit. But this is going to probably be right there with the AFC North. I would say probably the best division in the NFL. You could argue with the NFC West as well, I think a little bit, but it's going to be a tough. We're the black and blue division for sure, one of them this year, and we're going to beat up on each other, but whoever fares best in the division, I think, is going to ultimately come on top. And I think the Packers, with adding the physicality of someone like Nate Hobbs, adding Micah Parsons now, I think they're really ready to take that next step.
I think the NFC North is better than the AFC North, strictly just because Chicago is better than Cleveland.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Jake, what do you think about the NFC North?
So I did kind of the same thing as Brian did. The new OC in DC for the Lions. That's going to be massive for them. Also, Hutchinson coming off the ACL. He's kind of in a weird spot. He's coming off an injury, but he's also in kind of a contract year where he's trying to get paid. So how does he lean into that? Does he lean into the first couple weeks and try to feel how the leg is doing, or does he just go for it? And I feel like it's going to be the latter, honestly, which sucks for us. I was hoping, maybe he would, maybe I'll favor this leg a little bit and I won't be as dominant. But, yeah, I think he's going to be coming after Jordan Love pretty hard. As far as the Bears go, new head coach, overhyped Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams is literally a taller Kyler Murray. I'm sorry that people don't see it, but he's literally just a taller Kyler Murray. He's fast.
Kyler Murray is not a bad quarterback, to be fair.
Kyler Murray's mid. He's mid. Kyler Murray is mid. There's a lot of really good quarterbacks in the NFL. And by no disrespect do I mean that Kyler Murray sucks. I'm not saying he sucks, but he's mid. And that's how I feel like Caleb Williams is. He just doesn't read the defense as good as people were saying. I mean, this is a guy, I know they do it to every number one overall pick, except Cam Ward for some reason. But this guy's generational. This guy's guy's this. Everybody's generational nowadays. It's crazy. I mean, even Arch Manning was generational, and then at halftime he wasn't generational. He sucked too. So that's just the way the internet goes. As far as the Vikings go, JJ McCarthy's just got to be Brock Purdy. He's just got to be Brock Purdy. He's got to feed all the people that he has to feed. He has the best wide receiver in the NFL. I still think that he's better than Jamar Chase. Yes. He's got, he got Showtime over there. He got Hutchinson over there. They bolstered their O-line. They bolstered their D-line. Kevin O'Connell's a hell of a coach. He's a really good play caller. So the Vikings are going to be tough. Just all hinges on if J.J. McCarthy can play that balancing act of keeping everybody happy and running, that really good offense. And for the Packers, one move that people aren't talking about enough is how much better this offensive line is going to be when Jenkins is full go at center. Getting a more athletic guy at center to get up to the second level, so Josh Jacobs can run over the safeties like he was doing against the Eagles. I mean, I still have watched that play probably about 20,000 times since that game where he absolutely just runs over to Jean like he wasn't even standing there getting tackled by another human. I'm like, how do you even do that, bro? That's insane. But Packers and Lions are going to be fighting for this division. I think the Bears and Vikings are going to be fighting with each other for that third place, and Detroit and Green Bay are going to be a clash for this division for a long time coming because Detroit's got a pretty young roster too that people don't really realize. So adding Micah Parsons made the Packers younger, but also gave them the bite that they needed on defense. So it's going to be close. I have the Lions being around that 12-5, 13-4, even with the new coordinators, because Jared Goff's pretty good too, even though I like to talk a lot of shit about him.
Your dad's here to correct you on the Hutchinson injury was a broken leg, not an ACL.
Yeah, shit.
But he said that it's stronger. Steve said Detroit losing Ragnow is huge. Let's see how they manage Micah in the A gap. They lost another offensive lineman too, and I can't remember who the other one was.
Did Glasnow go somewhere else? Was he with Detroit?
I think one retired. Well, no, that was Ragnow.
Yeah,
Ragnow retired.
I forgot to look up who the other offensive lineman they lost was.
Was it that freaking skipper guy, that 70 dude? Who they always
Dan, their sixth man, Dan Skipper.
Yeah,
he's
Dan
not
Skipper.
there anymore.
Steve said Zietler.
It might be him.
That's you guys both mentioned them losing their two coordinators, Ben Johnson to the Bears and Aaron Glenn to the Jets, but they also took some of their position coaches to be their coordinators as well. So they didn't just lose their two coordinators. They lost like 6 coaches in all, when you consider the guys that went with Ben Johnson and the guys that went with Aaron Glenn to New York. So, Mike, I don't know what you're thinking as far as the NFC North is concerned, if there's anything else you wanted to point out.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because like a week ago at this time, and really for the bulk of the offseason, my thought on the NFC North is that the Packers are the one team with the least amount of change, the least amount of transition, because Detroit's got the new coordinators and their center, retired, and the Bears got the new head coach, and they got 3 new guys on the interior of their offensive line. They went out and spent for a bunch of free agents. And then the Vikings, of course, are starting over at quarterback. And the Packers were the team that, really, wasn't going through any kind of a change or a transition. And now Micah Parsons is in the mix. So like the whole division, like every team in this division has literally like a major change, happening to their team. And they're all different, but it's a major change for every team heading into the new season. So that part makes it, incredibly intriguing. And especially when it was the best division in football last year, now heading into this year, I think the Lions are going to be extremely difficult to knock out of that top spot. I mean, they've won it the last 2 years in a row. And I know that playoff game against Washington was a bad night for them in every way, shape, or form. But 2 weeks before that, they were playing a really, really good Minnesota team with a hell of a lot on the line, and they destroyed those guys without Aiden Hutchinson. And now they have Hutchinson back. So I think the Lions are going to be – I think the Lions are the team to beat in the NFC North until somebody says otherwise. And maybe the Packers will say otherwise on Sunday and get a win against them in week 1. I mean, we'll see. But in that regard, yeah, then after that, I mean, I expect the Packers to be in the mix. The biggest question mark in terms of the changes to me is the quarterback in Minnesota. I mean, you just never know in this league how a young quarterback who hasn't played is going to function in his first year, because it's not going to go smoothly. And, when bad stuff happens, because it will, how will he react to that? How will the team react to that? Because 17 games is an absolute marathon. And so to me, the transition in Minnesota to the new quarterback is the great unknown. It's the biggest question mark, even a bigger unknown than a new head coach in Chicago and 2 new coordinators in Detroit. So, but it just, I think it sets up for an incredible division race and a lot of intrigue and a lot of great storylines. And I think come December, when everybody's looking at, the playoff picture and who's in what spot and who's still in the hunt and everything, I think we're going to see potentially 3 NFC North teams in that mix again, come December, fighting to get into this thing.
Yeah. Jake's dad said, I think the season really hinges on how Love plays, and I would add in Love's health. He said he needs to win a couple games. Defense should be better. Have the running game. Golden should help him. I mean, there's plenty of things to like as far as the skill position players are concerned on offense. And we're going to get into that now as we kind of jump into our Packers-Lions preview, the last thing that we're doing tonight. So starting with the defensive side of the ball, Jake, what are you looking for from the Packers defense?
So I got a few things that I'm going to talk about. I'm going to hone in on the topics that I'll be covering. So first thing is the pass rush, right? That's going to be the biggest change this year, obviously from last year to this year. When you add one of the 5 best players in the NFL, and I'm talking like everybody healthy, everybody playing as good as they are, Micah Parsons is one of the top 5 players in this league. He is an absolute game wrecker. He can guard everything. He can guard options. He can guard the run. He can defend the pass. He does everything. Micah Parsons is just going to make everybody better. And I was looking up some grades, and yes, these are from PFF, so take it for what you will. If you don't like it, you don't have to like it. Don't shoot me. I'm just a messenger. He got a 90 grade as a D end last year, a 91.6 grade as a pass rusher, which was 4th out of 210 qualified defensive ends. And he was a 65 grade against the run, which was 72nd out of 210. Compared to all the guys in the Packers. So the leading sack guy in the Packers was Gary. Not even close. Michael Parsons is in another universe compared to Rashawn Gary. In terms of hurries, Michael Parsons is in another universe. Now, obviously, this is going to make Rashawn Gary look all worldly because he's going to have one-on-ones all day, and he's going to beat a bunch of left tackles and right tackles like a drum all day, and I'm going to love that. I feel like my expectations are a little too high. I'm expecting the Tennessee Titans game 17 times this year. It's not going to happen, but that would be sick. In terms of,
we're not going to have 107 sacks or whatever.
Yeah, right. The Packers tied for 4th with third down conversions per game at 4.4. They averaged 12.2 third downs per game against them. That was tied for 5th with Pittsburgh. If they continue on the route they were on last year, they were 7th in the NFL, 36% conversion rate. I'm good with that. If you go up to 32%, first in the NFL was Detroit last year. If you sit around that 36 to 32%, you're going to be successful. You're going to get your offense back on the field, more opportunities to score. In terms of the red zone, now I got these off of teamranking.com. So when they do red zone scoring, they do touchdowns only, and they allow touchdowns on 57% of red zone trips, which was 16th in the NFL. Now, the last 3 weeks of the season, they were at a 44% success rate, which was 4th in the NFL over the last 3 weeks. If they hold that success rate of 44% for the entire year, they'd have been tied for first. So let's just do what we were doing the last couple of weeks, and we'll be really successful in the red zone. Less points for them, more points for us equals more wins. That's all I got for defense. Other than that, the corners are going to be much better because the pass rush is going to be better.
So you brought up Micah Parsons. Obviously, it's a big discussion point. I'm curious, and Mike, you might be able to give us some insight on this. Is maybe Lucas Van Ness playing interior on the D tackle position at all? The depth is there as far as defensive tackle is concerned. I mean, Devontae Wyatt, Carl Brooks, Colby Wooden, Nazir Stackhouse, Brinson, Goody brought in a lot of depth, and he said guys like Brooks and Wooden deserve more reps based on the way that they've played the last couple seasons. And, it's just all of the things that we heard all summer was that Lucas Van Ness is primed for a breakout. So, Mike, I guess I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, if they're going to try to use LVN, maybe potentially on the interior a little bit just to get him on the field a little bit more, or if they're going to use him as just the guy to spell Parsons and Gary.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really intriguing option. We've heard sort of hints and suggestions about Van Ness kicking inside, maybe on third downs or certain situational packages. We haven't really seen it, but it's sort of always been out there as a possibility, as an option. And maybe now with with Parsons in the fold, and for the most part, you're probably going to want Parsons and Gary obviously being the guys on opposite edges to where you're trying to strain that offensive protection laterally to have those guys coming from opposite ends that on certain third downs, certain packages, Van Ness maybe does kick inside and come after the quarterback that way. So I'm interested to see it, but until I see it, I don't know how serious the Packers really would be about that. It's hard to say. I do want to just make one other point because the Steve who sent in Zeitler, I was looking it up quickly on my phone. He is correct. Kevin Zeitler, the former All-American from the University of Wisconsin, was a starting guard for the Lions last year. It was his only year in Detroit, and he is now in Tennessee. So I had mentioned Graham Glasgow.
That's what it is.
I had mentioned Graham Glasgow. Glasgow is still with Detroit. He did not leave. It was Zeitler who left. He just played the one season with the Lions, and he's now with the Titans. So good pull by the viewer there.
Yeah, and real quick on that, I will say there is plays on tape where Micah Parsons is lining up on the inside. So
sure,
he's everywhere.
So it's just going to be crazy because you can put him at off-ball linebacker, edge, inside. It's going to be real. I really am looking forward to seeing how this develops over the next 17 weeks of the season.
On the same subject, he can stand up, he can stand over the center, he can put his hand in the dirt. I mean, the big thing that Simon had as far as Micah Parsons was concerned is just how Hafley can use him as a Swiss Army knife, because he can do he can do everything.
So, yeah, and I think there's going to be an evolution on a process to this, right? Like, I don't think in week one here on Sunday against Detroit that we're suddenly going to have all this film of Micah Parsons lining up in all these different places like right away. But give it a month or two, and we get into you get into the November and December part of the schedule, getting into the stretch run where Parsons is he's gotten fully incorporated into the defense over time. Then all of those options become available. So, there needs to be an understanding that there's going to be a process and an evolution to this.
I would say the very earliest that we could probably see some of that that variation would probably be week 5 after the bye.
Potentially, yeah.
Brian, is there anything you wanted to add that you're looking for from the defense on Sunday?
Yeah, so the topic I'll be covering for the season, and again, is linebackers and tackling. And for the linebackers, even before the Micah Parsons signing, I was very interested to see where the snap count starts with the shares, especially between Isaiah McDuffie and Tyron Hopper. How soon does Hopper start getting on the field a little more than McDuffie? Is that going to start? Does the Parsons, signing change that? Are they going to use Parsons at all? Off-ball linebacker. I guess that's all things we'll have to learn. But against Detroit specifically, we're going to need the speed of Quay Walker and Edgerrin Cooper to show up on the edges, because if Gibbs gets to the outside, which he will, when he gets to the outside, I should say, we need to be there to get him down, because if he gets out to the outside and gets an edge, that's where he can make some hay. Same with Amon-Ra St. Brown out of the slot and stuff. He takes, he likes to take those quick slants and run for a while. We need to have those linebackers ready to shut him down. Those two players are, if you can shut down Gibbs a little bit and Amon-Ra St. Brown, you're in good shape. And then lastly, if Edge Cooper I had him before we signed Micah Parsons. I had last week, my bold prediction for the season was that Edge Cooper is going to be an all-pro player. Second team, maybe first team all-pro. I think he's that good. I think the league's about to find out. Does signing Parsons hurt Edge Cooper's sack numbers a little bit? Maybe, or possibly it helps it. So I think you're going to see some up the middle blitzes against Goff using Edge Cooper, because how do you beat Goff? What did we do a couple of years ago when we stomped him on Thanksgiving? We pressured him like crazy. He turned the ball over a lot. So I think you're gonna want to create a lot of pressure against Goff and make him uncomfortable. And I think linebackers will be key in holding contain on the edge against those two big players, and then hopefully pressuring Goff.
Steve said, could LVN Gary Parsons be on the field with Parsons as a Sam backer? Mike, I don't know if you want to potentially answer that question and let us know if there's anything else you're looking for from the defense on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. Like I said, with Parsons, they're going to give him, a specific portion of the playbook, a specific role, in the early games. Then they're going to build on everything he can do. Can he line up at certain times down the road, like as an off-ball linebacker, and almost be like another Edgerrin Cooper in certain packages? Yeah, I could totally see that. I don't see that happening right away, but I could see that happening down the road. I mean, as far as the defense specifically in this opener against the Lions, I mean, I'll be honest with you, Kenny Clark is gone. If I'm John Morton, the new offensive coordinator for the Lions, and don't call him Johnny Morton because that's not the same guy. If I'm John Morton, I am testing the Packers' run defense with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery as much as I possibly can in that first game, and absolutely, building everything in the passing game off of the play action for Jared Goff, which is where we know he's at his best anyway. He is not at his most prolific when he is doing straight drop back. When Jared Goff has the running game going, and then he's doing the play action with like the little rollout stuff, a little bit of movement stuff with the pocket. That's when Goff gets into his rhythm and is absolutely deadly. And not that, they weren't going to test the Packers run defense regardless, but that could, some of those running plays with Gibbs and Montgomery might have a few extra stars on the call sheet with Kenny Clark not in the mix anymore.
Yeah. Brian, are you looking for anything specific on special teams?
Yeah, I think this is the first year I'm coming in a long time that we're coming into this season, and I'm like, I think we could have a top 10 special teams unit again. So William and McManus have been, they're hitting the ball so well. All you hear is spring training is, I listen to Andy Herman a lot. He says that when Whelan hits a punt, it's not natural. It almost like pauses midair and just stays up there for long. And I'm sure Spoff has probably seen this at practice. So, that dude is just booming punts right now. So he's going to be huge for flipping huge for flipping the field position in this game. And then McManus, we can't afford to leave any points on the field. And I feel a lot better with McManus trotting out there. He was spectacular. He had one, I think, family night or something, or not family night, but one bad, practice with, who was the joint practice with that we had a really really bad during practice. He missed a couple kicks. That was it. Other than that, he was something like, 58 out of 62 or something crazy. I can't remember the exact number. And then lastly, who's going to be returning for the kicks? If Nixon is back there, is Detroit going to kick him the ball and give him a chance to return? Are they just going to say, nope, I don't want to play with that, so go ahead and go to the 35? So, and if Nixon breaks a big one, do they kick it to him again? I don't know. I guess we'll find out. So I think he's a serious. If I know he was upset with the Eagles game, I'll take this to my grave. He fumbled the ball, but he recovered that. It got ripped out in a pile. He was critical of himself after the game, said he didn't want to do it anymore. I think he's probably changed his tune a little bit. We'll see if he's returning. I do think there's a really solid chance that McCole Hardman gets a practice squad call up and he's returning punts this week. So I think that our special teams has a chance to be a serious factor in a good way for us versus what we've seen in the last several years.
The initial depth chart had Nixon returning kicks and Reed returning punts. So Mike, I don't know if you have any thoughts on as far as returning and special teams go.
Yeah, I mean, I think what Brian said, the possibility of like Hardman getting called up from the practice squad to return punts, I see that as a distinct possibility, especially with Jaden Reed still dealing with that foot injury and whatnot. Nixon as kick returner is that's an interesting one for me because what I sort of see is like if the Packers are returning, the opening kickoff or the first kickoff of the second half, I could see Nixon being back there. But if Nixon's on the field and, the defense gives up a 12-play, 6.5-minute scoring drive, I don't think you're sticking him back there at the goal line right after that to return the kickoff. So then, who's the next guy? And now I know the depth chart as it is in the dope sheet on the website is unofficial. Yep. But the second guy is Bo Melton. He's the one who's listed there. So I think that's that's potentially a guy to keep an eye on because I don't think if the defense has been on the field for a long drive and they give up some points and then you're sending kickoff return out there, I don't know if that's Keyshawn Nixon's job at that point. He needs to get rested up for the next possession. So, but yeah, everything you're saying about McManus and Whelan, I totally agree. I mean, Whelan was really impressive this summer. You can see, I thought he was pretty darn good last year, and you can see he's still a young player who's getting better, whose arrow is pointing up. And McManus is just proving to be, that absolutely reliable veteran who's been there, done that. He knows what to do as far as his process and how to get ready. And yeah, I mean, it's so nice after what the Packers have gone through the last couple of years to be heading into this season with absolutely zero questions at the specialist positions. And that's a nice spot to be. I'm going to give another shout out to Steve really quick too, because I was talking about the run defense. I mentioned Clark and he brought up that, TJ Slayton is not with the Packers anymore either, which was not a surprise. I figured the Packers weren't going to pay Slayton, and he got a nice payday elsewhere with Cincinnati. But yeah, that's another piece to a run defense that was the Packers' best run defense since 2009. In 15 years, it was their highest ranking in run defense last year. And now not only do you not have Slayton, but you don't have Clark. So there's going to be an adjustment there. I trust Jeff Hafley to figure it out. And the bodies, the players are there. They're going to have to prove themselves. They have to prove the front office right. But yeah, anyway, shout out to Steve. He called out another one on me.
Yeah. Steve also asked if Emmanuel Wilson has returned kicks. I'm sure he has at some point. They weren't using him for that at all in the preseason. They were using Israel Abanikanda for that, who is also on the practice squad.
Yeah, and Emmanuel Wilson was injured for a portion of training camp too. So I think, if he's in the thoughts potentially at returner, just because they didn't use him in the preseason when he was coming back from that injury, that doesn't necessarily mean he's out of the picture in that regard. So.
All right, let's flip to the offensive side of the ball. And just looking on offense, looking at the passing game distribution, it's going to be very interesting. Health is going to play a big part in this. Guys like Dontavian Wicks, Jaden Reed, Savion Williams, those guys all missed time in the preseason. I highlighted this when we talked about stat projections. when he was healthy last year, Romeo Doubs was targeted almost 7 times a week last season. So with Reed, Wicks, Savion Williams banged up, I expect that to be the case with obviously Matthew Golden in the mix. So that's going to be very interesting to see how the distribution goes. The other thing that I'd cover on the offensive side of the ball is the red zone. The Packers tied for third in opportunity last year behind just Tampa Bay, Washington, and Detroit. They tied for 6th in red zone touchdowns per game and 10th in touchdown percentage. I would like to see those things be kind of closer together, obviously more towards the higher end. There were a couple times, obviously the Texans and the Jacksonville Jaguar game where they purposely waited until the time ran out to kick field goals in the red zone, but that's a small part of it. So for me, it's going to be looking at the Packers being more efficient with their opportunities because their opportunities were one of the best in the league last year. So, Jake, what are you looking for on the offensive side of the ball on Sunday?
So I only cover third and fourth down offense, but I do have some thoughts on some other things. In terms of third and fourth down offense, 2024 Packers were 10th in conversion rate at 40.3%. If you wanted to get into the top 5, the number 5 team in the NFL last year was Cincinnati at 46.7%. So the goal really should be around the 45 to 48%. And how do you do that is you have a healthy quarterback for one. That's a big thing that not a lot of people are taking into consideration when talking about the 2024 Packers is Jordan Love basically just gutting it out for over half the season, it felt like. But also, getting Josh Jacobs going early in games. And I think that's going to be a really big thing. I think that's why they signed Aaron Banks, because he's such a good run blocker. And they kicked Jenkins inside to help with the run, get a little bit more athletic center so you can get up to the second levels with those linebackers and safeties and open up some bigger holes. But that's the point I wanted to get to is the thing is, Mike was talking earlier, and that's a really good point about how Detroit's going to try to test the Packers' run defense. I think if you're gonna play Detroit, you got to test Hutchinson's leg, and you got to run right at him with Josh Jacobs because that's a load of a man coming at you, and I think that'll be a big test for the Packers. I mean, DJ Reader's a hell of a run defender. I remember coming into last year, I was so pissed that DJ Reader ended up with the Lions. I was like, damn, bro, that's such a good signing for them, dude. He's gonna feast in the run for them. But
We got
getting
to throw
Josh
one
Jacobs
other name
going,
out there just because we've talked about the Lions defensive line a handful of times. Aleem McNeil is really underrated also.
yeah, he's a pretty good. He's not underrated anymore. I think if you would have came into last year saying he was underrated, I would agree with you, but not anymore. I think everybody knows who McNeil is now because the Lions have been on national TV plenty, and a lot of people know who all the big name players on there.
Yeah, and
but
McNeil was a big piece that was missing for them when he was hurt late last year too. They definitely missed him when he was not in the lineup.
Yeah, he was a big name. You got to get Josh Jacobs going because I feel the same way that you said about Goff. I think Love is better in the play action as well instead of a drop back passer. The only passes that he's really good at when he drops back is those little out routes. He's really good at that, especially with Romeo Doubs. But you got to get the play action going out of that 12 personnel. Hopefully Musgrave keeps the hot streak going, and I think that Tucker Kraft could be a good matchup with Anzalone actually in the middle of the field.
Yeah, Bryant, what are you looking for the Packers offense on Sunday?
Yeah, so talking about the wide receivers, it's going to be interesting to see who's healthy, who can go. At this point, unless Wicks practice on Wednesday, I don't think there's much of a chance he's going to play. Reed, obviously, with his foot, it's very concerning, that injury. If he re-injures that thing, we're looking at potentially season-ending with that Jones fracture. So hopefully, once again, talking about how we opened the show with talking about Michael Parsons' injury, I think if there's any major concern there, I mean, things happen, but I think, if the medical staff clears him, I'll feel pretty good that he's ready to roll. I think Romeo Doubs will be as steady as ever. He's going to be a big, piece of the offense. And then the big wild card is Matthew Golden. I think he's going to be a huge part of this offense, and I think it's going to happen quick because not only is he talented, it's also a necessity. The big thing will be catch the ball. We cannot have the drops that we did last year. You don't beat a team like Detroit by dropping a first down pass on a third down. You can't be giving up first downs by dropping passes or anything. So they need to hold on to the ball. Look, the Lions have really good secondary. They gave up a lot of passing yards last year, but that's because people were having to throw so much against them. They gave up something like the 30 or the third most passing yards, but they had the best passer rating against in NFL at 82. So they'll take the ball away. DJ Reed is a very good cornerback that they picked up. So it's gonna be a challenge, but kind of like Jake touched on it, I think it could be very interesting to see what they do with Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave, who's had a huge or very good spring. He seems like he's healthy. He's playing well. Really, last 3 weeks he seemed to come on in the spring. You hear about big catches made from him in practice, the scrimmages, and you've seen a little bit in the preseason games. So really, I'm looking forward to see how the tight ends add to that pass catching group with our wide receiver core that's a little bit beat up right now and beat up our young. So, and then as far as O-line, I'm kind of looking, Walker did come out and say he's starting at left tackle. That doesn't mean there won't be a rotation there. We're going to see, is Morgan rotating at left tackle? Is he rotating at right guard? That's going to be something I want to keep an eye on, see how that goes. I'm really, Jake touched on a little bit. I'm really interested to see Elton Jenkins and Aaron Banks, what kind of holes they can create right there on the left side of the line. That should be good. Lions were great against the run last year. We're still going to have to try to run against them. You need to control the clock a little bit against this team. So, and just be ready to block Hutchinson because kind of like Michael Parsons said, I can't wait to get my hands on some people. I guarantee Hutchinson's feeling the same way. So,
yeah.
So, yeah, Mike, I mean, we talked about a bunch of the health of the wide receivers and stuff. The role of Kraft and Musgrave. What are you looking for from the Packers offense on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, specifically against Detroit, I mean, where it starts for me is how are you going to handle Hutchinson? Because I mean, I remember, I think it was the 2022 game that was in Detroit. So it was the year before they played Detroit on Thanksgiving. I mean, Hutchinson just almost single-handedly won that game because the Lions offense really didn't do much at all. And but the Packers couldn't do anything because they couldn't deal with Hutchinson. So that is the biggest piece of this to me. But yeah, I'm really curious. Kraft and Musgrave on the field together. What does that mean? And then we've seen over the last couple years, we've seen this evolution of the offense, the passing offense, to where when you had Devontae Adams. You're gonna feed that guy. You're gonna scheme for that guy. I mean, all those things, and you had the quarterback who had the telepathy with him and everything else. But then since Devontae Adams left, it hasn't been like that at wide receiver. We know it's been very much a group and a committee kind of thing. And you just wonder when you have some of these guys who have been dealing with injuries. Christian Watson won't be back on the field just yet. To Brian's point, how quickly does Matthew Golden become, a reliable weapon in this offense? And then does that change the whole dynamic at wide receiver if he proves early and often that he can be that guy? So that's the really curious thing. And I'm not saying that that's going to happen against Detroit or that it's going to happen right away. But, again, halfway through the season, we may be having a completely different discussion about where the Packers are at wide receiver and what this passing offense looks like, because Matthew Golden, from everything that I've seen through OTAs and training camp and everything, this guy looks like the real deal.
Alrighty. Yeah. Bryant, I know you touched on a bunch of them right away, but just the injury designations that we're looking for on Sunday.
Yeah, Jenkins, Banks, who both had, if I'm not mistaken, practiced on Monday. Reed, Parsons, who we've talked about the back, and then the Wicks. Those are the main ones I'm kind of keeping an eye on. Yeah, I know Zane Anderson came back. There's a couple other people that were on that injury watch list. Sorrell came back as well. But I was more so focused on players that I think are going to have a big impact in this game, and those five are, big players. I would be a little surprised if Wicks plays, though. He just hasn't practiced in so long that I'd be pretty surprised. Oh, sorry, McKinney as well. But he had started to come back as well. So,
alrighty, Jake, what's the weather going to be like?
All right, so don't shoot the messenger again. This is from the Weather Channel, okay, people? This is the official Weather Channel here. They say a high of 64 degrees, generally sunny despite a few afternoon clouds. Winds at 5 to 10 miles an hour northwest. Nighttime, there's a low around 40, mild wind. So it's going to be cold.
Nice. That sounds like some good fall Packers weather. It's cold.
Yeah,
out.
that sounds
I'm in
way
North Dakota
better
right
than
now,
the
and I was
game
just
last year.
outside. I'm in North Dakota, and obviously, and I just walked outside, and this is the weather that's pushing towards you guys, I think. And the wind was whipping, and with a little bit of rain and overcast, and it was like 50-something degrees, and it felt cold after this summer. So,
Yeah,
Football
summer's
weather.
over.
Scott, we're really close to doing our score predictions. So looking at it, Jake, who is your X factor?
So my X factor is Zach Tom. Actually, we've talked about the Lions a bunch, and the one guy we keep bringing up is Aiden Hutchinson. So I have Zach Tom as my X factor because he's got to stop that guy, and he got paid, so we're paying him to stop that guy.
True. Brian, who's your X factor?
yeah, I touched on it very briefly, but I think Edge Cooper. I think if he can help shut down those runs, or if he can help support the run up the middle where we lost a couple players, or he can get some pressure. He's kind of people are going to have to focus on Micah and Gary, and all of a sudden they're going to have to start to forget. I mean, it's going to be a trouble in the front seven here for people, and because Edgerrin Cooper is a monster, so he is my X factor for this game, and I think he could make a game changing play for us here.
So mine is Matthew Golden. I'm very, very interested to see. And again, Mike said the depth charts are very unofficial, but Matthew Golden is listed as a starting wide receiver alongside Romeo Doubs. And then Jaden Reed is the other one that's listed there. But if Jaden Reed's banged up, does that elevate Matthew Golden to, quote, wide receiver 2 as far as the Packers are concerned and as far as Jordan Love is concerned? So it's a situation where Mike said, we might have to be seeing, how it looks in the middle of the season. But as far as week 1 is concerned, we might need Matthew Golden to kind of grow up really quickly, even if it's just for 1 game, 2 games until, the other established guys are back and can help out in that department. So, Mike, if you had to pick an X factor for Sunday, who would you pick?
Well, I'll start by saying I like all of your picks. Zach Tom, Edgerrin Cooper, Matthew Golden. I think those are all really, really good picks for X Factor. So to pick somebody different, I will go with Luke Musgrave because we've been waiting. We've been waiting for Luke to get a stretch of good health to really get incorporated into the offense and be out there with Tucker Kraft and present challenges to defenses that maybe are a little bit different. So I'll go with him for an X factor in this one.
Yeah,
it'd be interesting to see how his footwork looks. That's one thing we've seen a lot of too, is how he's bringing the ball in and how he's having his feet moving while that's happening.
I think he's gonna be able to stretch the middle of the field up the seam. I'm excited to see this. If he can stretch the field up the middle of the seam, and you start getting Matthew Golden running crossers, where if he gets the ball in his hand at full speed, he's going to create some yak. It could get pretty fun for the Packers offense here.
Steve said his X factor is Javon Bullard in the slot. Scott asked who steps up for Kenny. I think the biggest guy that needs to step up for Kenny Clark is Devontae Wyatt. I talked about him a lot last season, about how the Packers defense was much better in games when he was healthy. I think he is the one that stands to benefit the most from Kenny Clark's name not being on the defensive line. All right. Let's do some score predictions. And Jake, give me your score from the head.
My score from the head is 30-27 Green Bay.
Ooh, I also put a 3-point margin of victory for the Packers at 24-21. Simon also had a 3-point margin of victory at 27-24. So, Bryant, what's your score prediction from the head?
Yeah. So I know we do head heart. Just to recap, I will never pick against the Packers. I played baseball. I'm superstitious. Even if my head is telling me we're not gonna win the game, I won't pick against them. Just so everyone knows, the Packers going in my brain. The Packers are going 17-0 this year. But I have the exact same score prediction as Simon from the head is 27-24.
All right, Mike, if you had to give the analytical score prediction, what would you throw out there for Sunday?
Yeah, I'm right. I'm kind of right in that same mix where everybody else is. I'm gonna say 26-24.
Oh,
Steve said to change your socks.
Oh, Garrett, better get the heart in condition.
Yeah,
here.
that's gonna be a tight
Good
one in week
Lord.
1. All right, Jake, from the heart.
All right, from the heart, I have us with a 10-point victory, 34-24.
So I went a little nuts on the heart. I put 34-17, just in an all things going perfectly situation. I have 34-17. Simon had 31-24. So Bryant, what would you say from the heart?
I had a pretty big margin too. I put 34-23.
All right, Mike. All things ideal, optimistic score prediction. What would you say then?
31-20.
I like it.
I'd say a two score victory would be the ideal. I think.
Love that.
Yeah.
All right, Mike. So since we got you in here for Simon, we'll let you do the thumbs up or the thumbs down on the Simon Says. We always do a couple bold predictions on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. So thumbs up or thumbs down. Brian, do you probably have like 24 of these this week?
I have 3. These are all bold.
Brian, read your first one.
All right, mine are bold. So we've talked about him, where he's going to have to grow up quick. I put that Golden starts his career with 100 yards and a touchdown.
Oh.
Don't forget, this is a dude that could catch a 70-yard touchdown pretty quickly.
Yeah, I'll give the thumbs up.
All right, I like it.
Give the double thumbs up. I'm with it now. Let's go, baby. Let's go.
All right, Jake, rip one.
All right, I went pretty bold too. Josh Jacobs, 3 total touchdowns.
Oh man. Well, he did. He actually did. He did that against Detroit last year, even when the Packers lost. So I'll.
He was on fire in the second half of the year. Hell yeah. Let's go.
All right, so we're gonna have to score like 45 points for all of these to come true. But Brian did bring up the teams passed a lot against the Lions last year due to being trailing in games. But I put Love 3 touchdowns to 3 different players.
Oh wow!
See, it can work out.
Well, no, this can all work because like one is to Golden, and Jake said total touchdowns for Jacobs, so one could be to Jacobs, and then the other one could be to Kraft or Dobbs or Musgrave or whoever. So yeah, I'll give.
That's 28 points. That's all that we were all right around there.
It's all taken care of. Yeah.
All right, Brian, give another one.
This is where we get into the 30s. I put that Nixon House as a kickoff return.
Oh, vibes.
Nah, I don't see that happening. I love Key, but I don't. No, I don't. I just. Yeah, I don't know.
I'm tweeting at you on Sunday when it happens.
Yeah, go ahead. Let me have it. All
right, Jake.
All right. So Xavier McKinney proves why he was first team All-Pro and has 2 interceptions.
2 interceptions, not just one.
Yeah, he has to show up Carl Joseph.
Kirby Joseph, yeah.
Kirby Joseph.
Sorry, dude. Carl Joseph.
I'm giving the thumbs down only because I don't know if anybody over the last couple years has had multiple interceptions against Goff in the same game.
Somebody from the Texans had to have last year.
Maybe.
Oh, that's true.
That would be the only game
the big 5 interception game. Yeah, I'll have to look that up and see who got those interceptions.
All right, mine on defense is Micah Parsons and Gary combine for 2 sacks, but literally combine. They literally meet at Goff twice.
Oh, that's interesting.
Oh boy. No, I'm gonna give another thumbs down on that one. I don't see it.
Okay.
I don't see it. I think that's a little much.
All right, we're going high scoring over here. I like it.
Yeah. Okay, so my last one is Gary, Parsons, and LVN all record a sack. They don't have to be at the same time.
I specified
Gary, Parsons, and LVN. Yeah, I'll give a thumbs up on that one. Yeah,
love it. All right, Mike. Before we bid adieu, is there any bold predictions you would want to make for Sunday?
Bold predictions. Boy, well, this isn't even much of a prediction, but I mean the way these things go, and I've been doing this for a long time. Win or lose, the overreaction from the fan base to this game is going to be off the freaking charts, because if the Packers win this game, it's like all right, it's NFC North title, it's Super Bowl and everything. And if the Packers lose this game, it's going to be like, oh, there's no way that they'll ever catch Detroit. There's no way they'll ever be able to beat those guys. I mean, it's just it happens every year in the first game. And the only reason it didn't happen after the first game last year is because everybody was just worried about Jordan Love's knee. So nobody was really talking about like the big picture of, the implications of losing that opening game down in Brazil to the Eagles. But
I remember distinctly I could not sleep that night, which wasn't good for me for the work the next day. Like I was freaking out. I remember I was messaging them. I was like, dude, I seen that thing like pop out. Like, they're like, Brian, shut up. And I'm like, okay, I got to go to bed. And I remember I woke up that morning. I didn't care that we lost. All I cared about is I seen news that more testing, but they don't think it's like a season ending thing or anything like that. So I was like, yeah. So
that was a long flight back from Brazil. Let me tell you, thinking about what that worst case scenario might have been. Unfortunately, it was not the worst case scenario. So
well, I'll just say I hope that the Chiefs and Chargers have a better field to play on than what we dealt with.
Yeah, we were the test dummies.
It's hard to imagine it being any worse. But yeah, that was not good. This experimental type stuff that needs to get taken care of.
All right, Mike, we appreciate it very much that you were willing to hop on with us again and spend an hour and a half with us. We appreciate it always. I mean, you always give us tons of insight. Obviously, working with the team, it gives us much closer insight than we could hope to have. So we appreciate that you've hopped on with us a whole bunch of times, and we will always be willing to have you back. And the amount of times that we said, we'll have to see how things go in the middle of the season. We'll have to have you back on a Tuesday night in the middle of the season to kind of check in on some of those things. But we'll
absolutely, let's do it.
Again, I just want to say thank you again for hopping on with us.
Yeah, you bet. No, thanks for having me. I always appreciate chopping it up with you guys. It's a lot of fun. I've enjoyed getting to know you guys. I appreciate what y'all do. So thanks for having me, and absolutely, let's do it again.
Awesome. All righty. Thanks everybody for sticking around, for commenting along. We appreciate it. Jake, Simon, I will see you. Jake and Bryant, I'll see you guys next Tuesday. Simon will be back. And Mike, enjoy Sunday, and we'll talk soon.
Sounds good, guys. Take care. Thanks a lot.
See ya.